Hey everybody, Merry Christmas. This is probably coming to you on either Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, and we hope you're enjoying your celebrations, even though most of us are not able to see all the family and friends that we used to. And we just wanted to close this year out and this series out by talking a little bit about some other of our Bruderhof Christmas traditions that are either meaningful or fun to us. And so we'll get started doing that.
So we've discussed the lead up towards Christmas and the various celebrations and some of the traditions, but I think now we need to talk about the nativity scene, what we call the crib scene. Mm-hmm. And this is really a beautiful event that's kind of focused on bringing Christmas to everyone, but particularly the children. And it usually takes place at the barn. We have a relatively...
Each community, the larger community locations has a barn where there's animals, horses, donkey, sheep, goats that we keep for the kids, so the kids can grow up with animals around them, and that's where the manger scene is generally set up. And what happens is the whole community will gather in generally the middle of the compound. What are we calling it? The settlement.
Yeah.
Settlement.
Sure.
Anyway, and we'll wait there, and it's generally quite chilly and in some ways a little uncomfortable, which I think is also important to remember that Jesus' birth took place not in comfort, but actually in very poor conditions. And we'll wait there, and eventually we'll see a person dressed as an angel, with a white gown, beautiful.
Yes. And my recollection as a child is usually quite a large and imposing angel. So it makes quite an impression. This angel will walk through the middle of the village where we live, and with a torch, a flaming torch in hand. And you can watch the angel progress towards where the people are, and then silently this angel will lead the people towards the nativity.
Yeah, this whole proceeding takes place in complete silence, and that's actually, there's this notion of, in German it's called the stille Krippe, which means like the silent crib. So there's no talk except for when one of the pastors will read the Christmas story from the Gospel of Luke. So there's no singing, there's no chit-chat, and we're just there observing Mary and Joseph and the baby Jesus, always a real baby.
Yes, and sometimes the baby is crying or uncomfortable, and I remember as a child watching Mary comfort the baby Jesus and thinking that was really how it must have been. And sometimes the animals will interact with the shepherds or get involved looking at the child, so it's very beautiful and real experience.
And I'll try to stick a photo in of one of the past manger scenes.
It's a special experience, and usually we have angels kind of surrounding the Holy Family and the child. And like Rich was saying, it's usually silent, but occasionally we'll sing some of the more reverent or beautiful Christmas hymns or songs like Silent Night and Away in a Manger. And another beautiful part of the nativity scene is the children will often want to bring a gift to the manger. So there's a chance for the whole community to file past and get a closer look at the scene. And at that point, sometimes the children will bring fresh eggs or cookies or something for the Christ child, which I think is a wonderful tradition.
It's beautiful. And then on your way out, there's angels with baskets full of unlit candles, and they'll light your candle, and you'll go home carrying this candle and trying to protect it from the wind.
Yeah, and that's really an experience in and of itself because, like Rich was saying, the weather isn't always amenable to carrying candles home. It's often windy or rainy or snowing. So that's an experience trying to protect your light and keep it lit all the way home.
And if it goes out, you get it lit from someone else.
Right, you're with your family group, and your dad will have been more successful than you. But what we always do then, I'm not sure what your family did, but we would take our lights into our living room, and we'd have places where we could set them up, and we'd have dinner strictly or primarily from the candlelight.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Yeah, we do something similar. Yeah, after that, there's a very special dinner with the family at home, which then the smaller kids are put to get to bed, and that then leads into the Christmas Eve meeting, which is really a very special meeting with, the older kids, where we'll hear more from the gospel, and it's just a great time, on this most holy night, to be reminded that we all need to keep our lives centered. And there's this quote from Bruderhof founder Eberhard Arnold, which I often think about. It goes, "He who wants to be born of God must be mindful of how Christ's birth took place." And what that really means is, when you think of Mary and you think of when the angel came to her, her response was very simple and very childlike, and that was just to say, "I'm the Lord's servant, let it be to me according to your word." And that's really, if you look at believers throughout the ages since then, people who've gone before us, who we don't even know, centuries ago, that's always been the case, is just that simple, hear and believe. So that's a beautiful evening, and then everyone goes home, and everyone's traditions are a little different at home. You guys open presents or what?
Yeah, ours has kind of evolved, I think, as the children have grown up in our large family. But now we do open gifts, and we do try to invite different folks who maybe don't have a family. So single people or people who have few relatives. And that's really a great time. It usually starts devolving into more frivolity.
Well, that's also fun. You have the serious part and then the really fun part.
Right.
But one tradition that's I don't know if it's more of a local tradition, here at the community where we live, there's this legend that on Christmas Eve at midnight, the animals talk.
Yes.
For one night.
Yes, and this has been a big part of the local community here. So the children know this, and midnight is kind of a flexible...
It's a flexible midnight.
Yeah, it's flexible midnight. It's usually 9:30 or 10. But what happens is the kids will wake up and troop to the barn in the cold, hardly awake, and they'll go into the dark stable where the horse is, and the horse will share the Christmas story from their great-great-great-great-grandfather. And it's usually a very unique take to the whole event. And then from there we'll move on to maybe the goats or the potbelly pig, and definitely the cows. They usually have a good message.
If they're cooperating.
Yeah. And then sometimes they'll start mooing, and it's kind of like they lose their ability to speak after a while, so it kind of turns into stomping and mooing and have a Merry Christmas.
Yeah, for the skeptical people out there, you don't have to believe, but this really does happen.
It does.
And if you come and visit us one year, you'll experience it.
Yeah, it's hard. It's unforgettable.
Let's move on then to Christmas Day, actually, is generally we just celebrate it in families and have a good time opening whatever presents we have, mostly homemade and simple.
Yeah.
And we might get together as a community and, sing songs around a Christmas tree.
Yeah, pre-COVID, we used to all gather around an enormous Christmas tree set up in the dining hall. And usually some of our neighbors actually traditionally have supplied little candy bags for the children. Yeah. And that causes a lot of delight and glee as the kids come up for their token candy bag, and it gets pretty wild.
It's a lot of sugar.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Christmas Day, very beautiful. And then we go into this time, which is, I don't know if it's a Bruderhof thing, but we call it between the years. I don't know where it came from, but I've heard it referred to as that, going back to the beginning.
Well, isn't it the 12 days of Christmas? So Christmas doesn't just end on the 25th. It kind of progresses then.
Yeah. But between the years, I think, started as a time, in the early days of the community, for the community to really go over everything that had happened in the previous year. And they'd have a review of the financial situation and a review of the development. And then there'd be these epic
The marriages, the births, the deaths.
And everything would sort of be reviewed and talk about goals for the next year. So we don't do that so much anymore, and we more just focus on fun celebrations and also, thinking about what happened in the previous year. But it's just more of a time of R&R, I would say.
Yeah.
Then we're building up to the New Year's Eve meeting, which is how we celebrate New Year's, which is very different than watching the ball drop or other sort of what people might imagine as a New Year's celebration. It's really a beautiful, quiet anticipation of the turn of the year, and we gather usually around 10:30 at night with all the kids who can manage to stay awake, and we sit around an unlit Christmas tree, and one of our pastors will speak about what's happened in the past year. Sometimes we'll experience a baptism or an engagement or a wedding at that meeting. And then, yeah, go ahead.
I would just say that the youth will prepare for this New Year's Eve meeting. And one of the preparations that I find beautiful is we line all the roads in the community or the village that we live in with real candles. Mm. If we're fortunate enough to have snow, we can put them right in the snowbank and it has this beautiful glow. Mm. So depending on where you live, you can see all the roads lined with these beautiful twinkling lights. It's just a beautiful effect as you're preparing to enter the new year, to see all these little lights and then gather in preparation for the next year.
And sometimes someone will have put together like a little audiovisual recap of the year, which can be kind of entertaining to see. But that's not, It
usually brings out a lot of mixed emotions because you'll also have people on there who have passed away, right, and they're sharing either a joke sometimes or a meaningful comment that really expresses what happened during the year. So there's like tears and laughter, and it's awesome. Yeah,
it is. But really the focus of the meeting, I would say, or what you think of most is the tree lighting, which is a time for anyone in the community to light a candle and express a prayer, a wish, a thought, a longing for the new year. And that's a beautiful time to just hear what's on people's hearts from around our community.
And I love how cross-generational that is. You'll have 5-year-olds going up and lighting candles for their grandparents or the need of the world. And then you'll have old people, the elderly, sharing what's on their heart for the new year and lighting a candle, or sometimes even going together.
Yeah. So. And then when New Year strikes, there's the singing of a very old German, we call it the Night Watch song, but basically it's a song that was sung on the hour, every hour by people in German villages, centuries ago, who were responsible for keeping the peace. And each verse sort of speaks of God and God's care for the world. And the one that's sung at midnight goes, "Time will end and man must be mindful of eternity." And that's sung by a bunch of brothers. And then the community responds with the verse that goes, I think it goes, "Though man watch, it not availeth, God must watch, his arm prevaileth. Lord, by thy most gracious might, grant us all a peaceful night." And that's really how the new year begins.
Yes, it's momentous. And often it's kind of like, it's interesting how you just wait and anticipate this moment when you hear the chimes and then the singing. And it's often sung in German.
Yeah, it's sung in German.
Yeah. So it's a wonderful tradition.
I just remember as a kid just sort of the torment of the meeting, just trying
desperately
desperately to stay awake, and you'd look at the clock and you'd be sure like and only 5 minutes have gone by, and you just wonder how you're ever going to make it to midnight, and suddenly there it is, and you're wide awake again, and food comes out, and
it's party time afterwards.
Time, so. Anyway, those are some of our traditions that are special to us, and we just want to thank you for watching our video, and hope you have a very Merry Christmas, and we really wish you all the best for 2021. Things are going to get better, and God will have his hand over us. We're sure of it.
Amen.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.